webinar with an introduction to social procurement, and then move on to social procurement specifically in South Africa. I'll talk through that, and then we'll hand over to the Food Lovers Market team that run the Seeds of Change program, which is a social procurement initiative that's been running since 2021. And Terry Coppen-Harris will take you through the Seeds of Change program, and then transition into a panel discussion with some of the participants of the program, as well as a Food Lovers Market buyer. And then we'll have an opportunity to take questions from the audience on the panel and anything else towards the end. While the webinar is ongoing, I invite you to please send any questions that you have into the chat. We would love to have your questions, and you're welcome to specify if there's someone specific that you'd like to target your question to. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Lucy Duran, from an Executive Director at Juno Social Business. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Janine. I know my sound is not perfect today, so I really hope that you will hear me well. And apologies for that. I'm indeed one of the directors of Juno Social Business. We are an organization dedicated to social business and corporate social innovation. Basically, what we do is to help companies build new products or new business models that create value not only for the business, but also for the people and planet. And we design and run programs that bring together large companies with social entrepreneurs to advance corporate purpose or to integrate them as suppliers or business partners. But let's jump into our topic. If you will see in the next slide, we want to talk about social procurement. If you're not familiar with this practice that is quickly rising among corporates, it's the process for companies and their procurement functions to proactively select social entrepreneurs as suppliers for products or services, and therefore drive positive social impact inside their value chain. And before going into what is social enterprises, I want to just give a quick strategic outlook here. It's clear that sustainability is now in the playing field of procurement. If we look at the most recent EcoVadis barometer, it's a report that monitors progress on sustainability across hundreds of companies from very various industries. They found in 2024 that more than 70% of corporate leaders say that delivery on sustainability goals is one of the top procurement drivers. It is really one part of the mandate today. But sustainability in the value chain and in procurement is not something that just happens quickly like that. It requires, just like any other topic, a multi-layer approach. And if you take a look on the right in this slide, you will see what we call the Sustainability Supply Chain Leadership Ladder developed by BSR, which is something that I like to position the different strategies. Getting in-depth visibility in your value chain, ensuring compliance, still those two first ladder, still represent a huge part of the work for companies in terms of resources, negotiation with suppliers, or data management. But there is a risk to get stuck in what we call the compliance trap between the second and the third layer, and having difficulties moving from we do not harm towards we do good approach. And moving beyond audit and compliance is the goal here, of course, because regulation is increasing and increasing, and ultimately this is what is expected by the consumers, the employees, and increasingly the investors themselves. Social procurement represents here an opportunity to leapfrog the ladder, because social enterprises who will become your suppliers create a positive impact on society by their very nature. Therefore, your contracts mean more operations to them and therefore more impact. In that sense, procurement is uniquely positioned to boost a company's social impact, because you will have at a very lower cost, let's say, sustainability efforts with products or services that you will have to buy anyway. You will see on the next slide a few comments on what is social enterprises. And here, perhaps some of you are not familiar with this term, social enterprise, so I can give a very quick explanation. A social enterprise is a type of organization that operates just like a business, but the particularity is that their goal is to address a social problem and deliver a solution to it through its model. So they are not non-profit that are spending money. Financial profitability is here a tool towards a social goal, but not the end in itself. And this is not anecdotal, because we know and we estimate that we have more than 10 million social enterprises globally, creating more than $2 trillion US dollar of annual revenues. And no matter in which industry you work with or which procurement categories you're focused on, social procurement can be leveraged in many cases. You can find social enterprises in commodities, in finished products, packaging services, but also indirect services or distribution. And there is a particular case for South Africa, and how social procurement can be ingrained in historic procurement practices that have been adapted to the society. So after a global outlook, I'm really pleased to actually kick off this webinar on social procurement in South Africa. And with this, I also want to use the moment to give a special shout out to Janine, as well as the rest of the team behind this research and the release of this corporate guide. Very, very good. So with this, over to you, Janine.
Thank you very much, Lucy. It's very appreciated. Okay, so hi everyone. As a proper introduction, my name is Janine and I am part of the project team looking at social procurement in South Africa. I'm from a UNIS social business partner organization called Achendio. So I would like to start talking about our thinking and looking at the South African context of social procurement. So the first thing that makes social procurement super relevant in a South African context is the fact that we are faced by a complex set of structural challenges around poverty, inequality, spatial exclusion, and climate change, to name a few. And the consequences of the apartheid era and the transition since that has followed has left us with urgent development needs that the government alone cannot meet. So social enterprises and the systems that support their work provide an essential contribution to our shared goals. The other reason why social procurement is super relevant in South Africa is the prevalence of our preferential procurement policies and programs within corporations in South Africa. So preferential procurement here being in the form of broad-based Black economic empowerment. And social procurement and preferential procurement, as Lucy pointed out, share objectives. So in South Africa, that's addressing high unemployment rates and driving inclusive economic participation in our communities. But beyond this, we realize that there isn't much research on social procurement in Africa. So our team did some further research by asking 37 South African social enterprises that sell or aspire to sell to companies to learn about their experiences. And we had some deeper conversations with entrepreneurs and expert partners as well. And I think something that is incredibly exciting and interesting is that in South Africa, researchers found that in around 2018, there were over 140,000 social enterprises in South Africa, second in size only to Nigeria in Africa, and in excess of estimated numbers in the UK. And then secondly, from a BEE perspective, South African procurement professionals have a really strong understanding of preferential procurement. And many corporations already have systems in place to facilitate BEE, such as running or supporting enterprise and supplier development programs, or having procurement policies that require a BEE certificate. And BEE has laid this foundation of preferential procurement to pursue this goal of uplifting the South African economy by rectifying historical injustices and fostering the economic inclusion of Black people. Social procurement builds on this by incorporating sustainability and impactful value chains as a strategic objective. And so from our research, we found that half of South African social enterprises are women-led, most are Black owned, and specifically 60% of the B2B social enterprises that we surveyed have a level 1 BEE score. And so if you're running an ESD program, any type of ESD program, it's possible that you've seen social enterprises come through them already. And this introduces a possibility of redirecting, say, corporate social responsibility or corporate social investment spend towards social procurement simply by expanding supplier development programs to target social enterprises. And so doing, supporting Black-owned businesses, creating a sustained impact by leveraging a social enterprise rather than providing a limited grant or donation. And I'd just like to include or maybe just use a quote to for anyone that isn't super familiar with the concept of social enterprises, from one of our founders, Professor Muhammad Yunus, he said that with a donation or a charitable project, people's problems are tackled in the short term with money. But with a social business, on the other hand, people's problems are tackled in the long term with a self-sustaining business. And I think that really encapsulates, I think, the difference of targeting social enterprises to create an impact. But rather to get into it, on the next slide, I'd love to share that the corporate guide to social procurement in South Africa that our team has been working on is now available and will be shared with you after this webinar by email. The guide presents, as you can see on the right, some key insights from our research and market analysis, I guess, to frame where the guide fits into the market. Researchers found that approximately 9% of South African social enterprises already sell to large corporations. But within the social enterprise group that we've questioned, nearly 80% have already sold to corporate clients and 20% are very eager to start. And so it provides us really interesting insights. So in the guide, you can find information about the main challenges faced by social enterprises. We've also written some local and international case studies on successful partnerships between social enterprises and corporates. This was like by far my favorite part of the report to research and write. To go through it very quickly, our team got to visit the Food Lovers Market head office to talk to the Seeds of Change program team that will be speaking soon, and witness the amount of care and excitement that the program creates for Food Lovers Market. We had the opportunity to visit I Love Coffee's roastery and cafe here in Cape Town to experience the excellent food and coffee that they have available, as well as this seamlessly inclusive balance of deaf, hard of hearing, and hearing staff members. And we got to participate in the A2B methodology skills development program run by Taking Care of Business, which revolutionized our management practices at Achendio to be more centered on human development. So in the guide, you'll see these and many more social enterprises showcased that have informed our learnings. And we really invite you to review the list for potential supplier partnerships going forward. Yeah, and I'm very excited to share this guide with you. It's an entry point for South African procurement professionals, whether you're just beginning to think about what social procurement is, or if you're looking for guidance on tangible steps towards adopting the practice in your company. And again, you'll receive an email with the guide following this webinar. So now I'd like to hand over to Terry from Food Lovers Market to talk about their social procurement program, Seeds of Change. Terry, please take it away, and I'd love for you to tell us about what motivated Food Lovers Market to initiate and then grow the Seeds of Change program.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, Janine, and hello, everybody. And thanks again. I think it's such a privilege to be here today. And when you guys approached us about Seeds of Change, I think it was very humbling for us to be able to see that Seeds of Change was something that was kind of inspirational, especially for us. So again, thanks for having us. I think maybe your first question was kind of what made us want to do Seeds of Change, or where did it come from? And I'll probably just jump back. I'm going to jump back 30 years, and I'm going to jump forward to 10 years ago. Obviously, Food Lovers Market is a family-owned, founder-led business. It's run by both my father and my uncle. It was started as Fruit and Veg City originally, and it was born out of just having this real passion for retail, and specifically around fresh produce. And it was something that was started with 6 colleagues who started together, lots of those who still work together today, and it has a really strong family culture and quite a big entrepreneurial spirit, what the business has. So if we fast forward from there till 10 years ago, the business grew really, really quickly. And sometimes with great success comes some growing pains or learning challenges. And one of them was really around, how do you keep a culture when you have a business growing so quickly? How do you keep the same feel consistently across the business? And our CEO, my uncle, came across a book by a gentleman by the name of John Mackey, who was the founder of Whole Foods. And his book is called Conscious Capitalism. And that was kind of the first look into you know, really, what is the purpose of Food Lovers Market? What is the legacy that Food Lovers Market wants to leave on the South African market and within the world? And really started honing in on what does that look. And that's where our kind of sustainability, I mean, I suppose you could call it a sustainability journey, but it was really for us just, you know, how we wanted to do business where Earth Lovers was born. And I think for the first 5 years, there was a lot of focus on people, I think within our own teams, our colleagues, and growing and developing people. But it was about 5 years ago where we started looking at, you know, because it's a founder-led business, so it's two entrepreneurs and have that real entrepreneurial heart, there's a lot of focus or passion around our suppliers and specifically around our farmers. We know that when we started Freedom Ridge City all those years ago, a lot of the really big farmers or the really big suppliers weren't interested in partnering with Food Lovers Market because we were too small. And we made partnerships with other small businesses who have grown over the last 30 years with us. So there's a real loyalty, if you will, to entrepreneurship and small businesses. And I suppose for us starting to look at, you know, this jump, once you start, you know, getting into the bigger industries or bigger retail, you realize that it's really difficult from small businesses. And specifically, I'm going to go into social and environmental entrepreneurs. But getting into the supply chain, there's this gap that we found was really difficult to navigate. And that's where we started putting our kind of focus and passion. And we didn't want it to just be about small businesses. Obviously, we want businesses that have great products that would, you know, wow and delight our customers, that people would really look forward to and love within the Food Lovers Market context. But how do we find businesses that are also aligning with the values that we have in terms of doing good through the power of our business? So that's kind of essentially where Seeds of Change has come from. What I would maybe suggest, Janine, if you want to play the video just so that we can give context to Seeds of Change, and then we can talk a little bit and start introducing the rest of our panel.
I love the opportunity of supporting small businesses, to step out into the world, to listen to their hearts, to follow their dreams, to, in a really tough economy, to set up their own businesses. The courage and the bravery that takes, I just find so incredibly inspirational. If we can play a small part in their journey, then I'm happy. I think it's just incredibly inspirational to watch these entrepreneurs do the work they do.
Yeah, there was so much to love about Seeds of Change, but the opportunity to sit in a room for 5 days with other small business owners was mind-blowing.
What an incredible opportunity, like meeting other entrepreneurs, going through the same struggles, hearing everyone's stories.
To be taken behind the scenes, explained all of the terminology, costings, full breakdown of what it is that you're getting into, so that you go in making conscious decisions and informed decisions. I think that was amazing.
So us going to the DC and seeing how everything works, the arrival of products, how they handle them, for me, it was really amazing. I was like, hello, retail, I'm here.
Seeing that scale production and operation, it's inspiring, and it obviously motivates us, but that's something that you can get into. I'm very technical driven, so seeing all those come together to what you see at the storefront was really, really interesting.
I think that as far as supplier development programs go, this has to be one of the most comprehensive programs that I've ever had the privilege of witnessing.
It's given me the confidence which I didn't have before to approach a bigger retailer and say, hey, I'm really good.
Seeds of Change, for me, it's a lifetime opportunity. I don't think there's anyone else that can give us that opportunity that we receive today.
Connecting with the buyers and getting upfront what they're looking for, hearing from them the type of things that they are expecting from us. I think you don't get that. A lot of the time, the buyers do not want to, engage with us on that level. So we're very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
But it was such an amazing experience for them that the buyers, these big scary guys that they were told about, were so free with their knowledge, so free with their experience, and literally comforted them in a way that it made the entrepreneurs feel like, you know what, I got this, I can do it, I can do it.
You see so many young individuals that are 100% out there on their own, trying to make it, regardless of load shedding and all the terrible news that you read about how tough it is in South Africa. And yet every single one of them are standing on their own, and really they're surviving fine. I mean, we're just here to now help them scale and create a great business and create more jobs and help the next person.
What I love about Seeds of Change, even though it is slightly different every year, is the bond that the contestants have, how the contestants felt specifically this year around how they had created the kind of a family, which as Food Lovers Market, you know, we are a family business. It's a business that we, you know, really try and live our values every day. So to know that that culture kind of feeds through even into the contestants of a campaign or a project like this one is incredible to see.
The support system that we found here, we all came here and it was a competition when we arrived. But that fell away very quickly and we became a little family, helping each other out, advising each other what to keep out of our picture. The transformation that Food Lovers is bringing in through small businesses, that definitely sums it up for me, that Food Lovers is doing a whole lot of great things.
If you're thinking about entering Seeds of Change, you will never know if you don't try.
Don't think about it. Just enter. Just put your best foot forward and just enter. Get into it. Fill out the application. Think about what sustainability means to you. Take yourself seriously as a social entrepreneur and just enter and see what happens. That's it. Yeah.
There we go. Sorry, I forgot to mute there for a second. So yeah, that's really kind of encompassing what the Seeds of Change, the program is about. Very simply, it's a call to action for people to apply. We, you know, get a couple hundred applications, which we narrow down to a top 30. We spend 2 days in an online workshop scenario where we talk through some buyers giving some insight, marketing, and a couple of different things. And then we go to deciding our top 10, which is usually very difficult to narrow down. And from the top 10, they all come down to Cape Town for 5 days, where there's a boot camp. They, you know, get an intro from Brian, the CEO, kind of just talking about their own journey as young entrepreneurs within the business space. Lots of different insight, whether it's from product and labeling, logistics, pricing and costing of their business and their products. And then the fifth day accumulates in kind of like a Dragon's Den pitch scenario where they pitch their businesses. And from there, there's usually a winner. And the winner is then kind of gets a listing into Food Lovers Market. And maybe we started it that way, but for the last 2 years, by the time we get to the top 10 are generally all getting listed in the business. So it's been an incredibly successful campaign for us, program over the last 4 years. I'm very excited that in our panel we have year 1 and year 2 winner with us. So we'll start talking about that now. But I think one of the biggest things that we get up, because I understand the context of this webinar is really looking at from a business or from a corporate's perspective in terms of how do we bring, you know, these social entrepreneurs and these businesses into our kind of supply chain. A kind of unexpected value that we get out of it is the kind of passion or the inspiration that we feel within our own business. It really does create a real excitement within the business when you get to hear and you sit on that 5th day. And that's why we started inviting more and more business leaders within the company to come and experience that last day, because when you sit and listen to these entrepreneur stories and how they are changing, you know, the lives of people in their communities through the power of their business, it's quite humbling for us, but it's also really inspiring for us in terms of helping to see these guys grow, and not only with Food Lovers Market, but helping them to grow so that they create bigger impact in South Africa. So that's kind of our spiel on what Seeds of Change is. Janine, are we all right in time that we can start going into the panel scenario? Have we timed that right?
Yes, please. Yes, let's dive into the panel. I'm really excited for it.
All right. So, and again, I think I'd love this to be as kind of interactive as possible. If anybody has any questions, please jump in, on the chat straight away, because I'd love us to kind of talk about that. But as you can see, we've got Brian, Portia, and Ratang here. Maybe the way that we can start is each one of you can introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit specifically for you, the two entrepreneurs that are with us, to talk a little bit about what their businesses are before we dive into some of the nitty-gritty around them getting into a supply chain or into a business like Food Lovers Market. So maybe, Brian, do you want to start with you and just give us a little insight into where you fit in the scheme of things?
Hello everyone, there we go. Now I can see my ugly face. So yeah, I'm one of the buyers at Food Lovers. It's an exciting job that I have to help people to become greater or better entrepreneurs at what they do. And also it's great to be part of this whole process. And normally people are scared of doing or seeing buyers, and I've been told I'm a scary person, but it's not true. We are a lovely bunch of people and we love to work with people. The best thing at Food Lovers Market that you can find is when we find products that excites us, that excites our customers, that excites our business, and it excites ticks all the boxes. And for us to find that through these programs are really, really exciting. So yeah, so far it's been going great. The last 3 years has been very exciting. So seeds of change, and the more we see of these suppliers, the better. As Terry alluded, every time we've met with all of them have been listed almost in our business, because they all fit right in with our ethics and morals. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Right. Portia, do you want to give us a little insight into who you are?
Thank you, Terry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mabatu Portia Murudi, and I'm the co-founder of Local Village Africa. I know on the screen it says the Village Market. It's quite an interesting story, in that when I entered Seeds of Change, at the time, I was part of Village Market. However, through a partnership, Terry spoke about bonds that are created through Seeds of Change. We then merged our businesses with one of the finalists, the top 10 finalists, and we put our businesses together to create more impact, because we realized that we had some sort of similar values, and what we were trying to do was quite similar. Instead of running two separate businesses, we thought, why not bring everything together for greater impact? But in a nutshell, basically what we do is that we find ways whereby we're linking communities, deep remote villages, with nature conservation. And how we do that is in a form of apiculture, beekeeping. So we train them in beekeeping, provide them with implements. Then we buy back this honey from these communities. And just to add on what that has done for us as a business, being part of Seeds of Change and actually winning and being listed, is that at the time of entering the competition, if I'm not mistaken, we were working with around 9 communities. And to date, we're working with 21 communities that we've trained, and 1 community that's actually people living with disabilities that are now producing the beehives that we sort of distributing to all our beekeeping enterprises. So there's definitely value there.
And Portia ended up was our first year finalist and winner. So she's really been the guinea pig for us in terms of how we've developed the Seeds of Change program. But we'll talk a little bit about that just now. Ratang.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and share our story. So yeah, my name is Ratang Patlan. I'm the CEO of Sejong Tea Crafters. We're a tea manufacturing business that is based in the rural areas of Limpopo, within a village called Matlala Ramushibo in Marble Hall. We work with rural communities as well. We use an approach of asset-based community development to actually identify indigenous assets within rural communities. So we got into the communities within Limpopo and found that there's a great deal of indigenous knowledge. And most of the knowledge is undocumented, isn't exposed to the mainstream market. And we found that there's a lot of herbs and plants like teas that they've been drinking, you know, as part of indigenous knowledge systems. So we've developed them into a range of different tea infusions using different herbs and spices. And we were the second-year winners of the Seeds of Change program, and we've now listed these indigenous teas in all the Food Lovers Market stores across the country, which is really exciting. And, you know, with South Africa being the third most biodiverse country in the world, we felt that people shouldn't just be drinking rooibos tea. And through the platform of Food Lovers Market and the Seeds of Change program, we've been able to introduce consumers around the world to more indigenous tea varieties and also sustain jobs within rural communities. So we've created 30 permanent jobs and 10 casual jobs, and all of these are within rural Sekhukhune, and 49% of our company is owned by the community. So the community directly impacts from the growth of the company. Thank you.
Thanks, Ratang. So I think what we'll do now is we're just going to talk a little bit about kind of the process, you know, through Seeds of Change and then getting into the business. Maybe, Portia, do you want to talk us a little bit through, and maybe it's more just around the experience or the value that you were able to get out of the Seeds of Change experience, maybe the best kind of markers or areas for you that you found the best value for maybe those kind of businesses that are thinking about doing or trying to run a program like this or trying to bring social entrepreneurs within their business. What value did you get out of Seeds of Change?
Thanks, Terry. I think, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. So as social entrepreneurs, we're in a bubble, sitting somewhere in Winterfell trying to run this business. You're thinking you're doing a great job at it. And then you attend a course like Seeds of Change and you realize that there's a whole lot that you actually do not know. Personally, for me, I think getting to a point whereby I started a sense of governance in the business, because that was what was required in order to be able to be listed at Food Lovers. We had to go through the processes of governance. We had to look at our labeling to make sure that it's correct for the markets. It was a rigorous process. In fact, after winning, we didn't immediately get listed. It took almost a year working with the buyer to get our products shelf ready, because as I was looking at it, I thought we had a great product. It's amazing. But when you start going through the processes of having your product listed, you realize that, oh, yes, honey doesn't go off, but by law, you're required to have an expiry of some sort on your bottle. It was things like that that added value. And because we had a mentor, it sort of brought everything together, whereby it's checking in, where are you, what are you doing? To this day, interesting enough, the mentor now is sitting on our board because he brought such wealth of information into the business, getting it to be more of a formal, because we social entrepreneurs, we tend to run businesses with a heart. So it had to bring in people that are now starting to say, what are the numbers saying? Are the numbers making sense? Are you going to be running this like a business? So Seeds of Change allowed us to do that and find ourselves actually being able to confidently sit on shelves and not be worried. Do I meet the requirements? Do I not? So yeah, for me, that governance part of it was quite an eye-opener.
Yeah, and I think that often happens with us. We realize there's so much going into the listing process that we've had to redefine the program quite significantly to highlight and to educate a lot more around that. You know, Brian, maybe you can just add some insight as, you know, you guys as the buyers. I mean, what kind of learnings have you guys had, you know, bringing these social or these businesses into Food Lovers Market that you could maybe recommend to some of the guys listening?
Yeah, so it's an important thing that you know the product that you want to list within the market to make sure that it is a product that can actually sell, or there is actually a market for it. Other than the fact that the key thing is to make sure that you have certain things in place, like food safety certificate. When there's nothing can be looked after you, we can try what we want to. That's the first step that you have to have, is food safety. And that's not a COA from the municipality. It's a food safety certificate saying that your factory or your production facility is certified to produce food safely. And after that step is taken place, then you start looking at the product that you're producing and saying, okay, well, this is exciting. We can work with this product. What can it do for our customers? Is there a market for it? And sometimes when you see a product, you think, oh, this is an amazing product. It ticks all the boxes for social enterprise. But does it create a market? How big is that size of the pie, and how big is it to you? So sometimes it varies. Sometimes people think a 10,000 Rand turnover product is brilliant, and some people think a 200,000 Rand product is brilliant. I personally think a 200 million product is brilliant, but depending on how big the business is you want to grow. But it, like Terry alluded in the beginning, is we grow the businesses with you. So on the tea, for example, Ratang and I have been talking lately, and she's now got the teas in tea bags because we've realized the loose leaf tea market is so small. There's a market for it, but it's very small. So now it's going in tea bags. It's going into our stores in October, and I'm so excited because now we'll actually see more sales come through. So by doing that small change, it's all, every time we do a thing like that, it's like stepping up to the next level with the supplier, with the partnership. And I think as long as you realize you have to look at what you're trying to achieve within the market to make sustainable sales, that will be first prize.
You've addressed quite an interesting point here, and it's one of the insights I think we've kind of learned over the last 4 years, is that there is such a level of flexibility or adaptability needed. Specifically, you know, when you're looking at social and environmental businesses, they're often a lot more complex than an easy, I'm producing something and selling it. There are a lot more kind of, you know, contributors or pieces or roles that are played in terms of making that business what it is. So maybe Ratang, you can talk a little bit, because as kind of Brian has alluded to, you've had to be quite flexible recently in terms of almost how you kind of package your entire product and what your business model looks like. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been an exciting and interesting journey. I mean, like Portia mentioned, we're social entrepreneurs. We are, you know, passionate about communities, that we have to learn so much in how we can develop the business side of things, and especially when it comes to retail, because retail is just something completely different to, you know, the daily operations of a social enterprise. So we have to be able to learn and adapt fairly quickly, because at the end of the day, for a social enterprise to be sustainable, we need sustainable revenue. And in order to do that, we have to be able to capture a certain share of the market, you know, and grow our revenue. So for us, it was really just a journey of you know, getting the product in there, but also learning you know how are the customers actually you know, interacting with the product. Is it you know, looking at the sales, how is it moving, what can we do to increase our customer education? And you know, we've also had support from Food Lovers in terms of marketing as well, which has really played a great role in creating more awareness around our brand. So I think, you know, working together in all these facets, and I love what Brian said around working together to grow the businesses. It's really what it takes to get the impact within communities and to ultimately create a sustainable value chain for social enterprises.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And actually, Brian, I'm going to bring this back to you as well, because there's a level, you know, when we're talking about flexibility, it swings back to Food Lovers Market, or it swings back to the retailer or the corporate that wants to bring an enterprise like Ratang or Portia's business in. And maybe you can talk about, you know, when you're bringing these guys in, you need to be flexible in terms of, you know, do they need to supply nationally? Do they need to supply regionally? What are the kind of conversations that you have with them coming in so that you can understand where are they, what capacity are they at before they grow?
Yeah, that's one of our keys as a business, is that we've always been able to be quite flexible with suppliers to guide them. And if you're not able to reach all the regions from the start, we were able to just maybe have you in the region in which you operate in, like in Portia's case. And in Ratang's case, I personally would like to have your product in all my stores. So if a customer walks into a Food Lovers in Cape Town or into one in Johannesburg, it is on sale, and I say, okay, you can get this tea at Food Lovers, example. And that's the idea, is to build that your business around our customers, so you become our partner at the end of the day, that we can say that this is in our core and you are in our core as part of our business. So when they refer to your product, they will refer to our business too. And that's what you really want as a winner. Also, we preferably, when we do the seeds of change, we always look after the suppliers and the producers, so make sure that they get preference on space on shelf, and we drive it a little bit harder from a buying point of view. It comes with challenges and it is difficult, but yeah, we push where we can, and we try and educate our customers as well that we are part of this program now, and that these are producers that we can look after and look for finding our business.
You're right, and I think I think there's always kind of learning or how you can improve on the previous year. I think from a marketing perspective, us as Food Lovers Market can do a better job to inform our customers, because I think customers would, really appreciate to find out sometimes what these businesses are doing in the bigger context of South Africa. So there's always room to improve. So I wonder, I'm going to pass this portion. I'm actually going to ask Ratang as well. You've obviously got people on the call who, are looking at how do they better procure social enterprises. What would, some suggestions or some advice that you, obviously, because you've gone through this process yourselves, what would you recommend that would have helped support you, would have helped, success come quickly, or whatever you could think? What would you say?
Thanks, Terry. I think one of the first things is that mentorship. I think whoever that's looking to procure from a social enterprise, they should be willing to put in a little bit extra. Unfortunately, that's the reality that we need to be taken to that level, as Seeds of Change was able to do, at least in our case. We've had one of the team members being able to review our labels. So there needs to be an element of going just the extra mile, I think, from a mentorship and coaching these businesses, and not expect perfection from the onset, and that flexibility as well. Similar to Ratang, when we started with the Gauteng region, because that's what we could do at the time, and Food Lovers was interested in knowing how much exactly can we comfortably supply. So instead of overextending ourselves, we're able to say, this is what volumes we can bring on board in the beginning, and then we've been able to grow organically from that. So that flexibility is a must.
And Ratang? Thanks, Portia.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it really is a journey, because, in instances you find that a supplier in their business is maybe just selling, for instance, 1,000 teas a month, and then suddenly they're faced with an order maybe with 200,000 Rand, and just that journey of getting there really requires a lot of things. Portia touched on mentorship, but the reality of the situation is that as SMME is going to require some funding to be able to produce orders to that magnitude. So I think there needs to be some more collaboration with small business funding institutions and establishment that, can actually support SMMEs much faster to get to that point. Sometimes you're faced with a chicken and egg situation when it comes to getting access to funding as a small business, because you need a contract or a retailer to commit to buying from you in order to get access to funding. And you also can't supply and give a surety and get an order from a retailer if you're not able to actually produce to that scale. So it becomes a very tricky situation. So I think within this environment, collaboration is everything. Collaboration between the buyers and the SMMEs, as well as the external SMME development environment. So it's really something that's going to require a collaborative approach to get social enterprises to the next level much faster.
Yeah, I agree with you. And actually interesting, and I do see that there's some comments and some questions coming in the chat there. So I'm going to be passing some of those on to Brian. But before we get there, I think it's important you've touched on the point of almost like, what does success look like? And we've had these conversations, and I was chatting to Brian about it earlier today and saying, you know, sometimes you get a product that comes into the business, and there's almost an expectation of what sales are going to be, or what does success look like within the food lovers market context in terms of how many, you know, units we sell. But what we have found, and especially from some of the feedback we've gotten actually from both of you, is the entry into the market has opened other doors, which, you know, in that sense itself, there is success there. So I think we've almost got to look at it in the bigger context of going, what does that ability to supply, what else does it afford, you know, these social enterprises to do, or where to get, for example, additional funding, or how to actually grow those businesses just from the connection with a retailer. I don't know if either of you want to comment on that, or if we kind of want to move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'll comment. I mean, for us, it was very difficult to actually secure funding, because you need to have, you know, that order from a retailer. But, you know, through the Seeds of Change program, we had that assurance that we've got a market now, and then that allowed us to actually access funding to be able to scale our business. So it really opens a lot of doors. And yeah, just the mentorship as well assists you to structure your business in a way that makes you more sustainable, to actually fulfill the requirements for these, both the funders that you are entering into agreements with and the retailers.
Yeah. Thanks, Ratang. So I've got a question from Siobhan here, and she was asking whether she wanted to hear from myself or Brian about financial and supply flexibility. So, you know, from the onset, those that are within the Seeds of Change program, so I'm speaking specifically about Seeds of Change, there are preferential trading agreements or terms. You're talking a little bit about supply flexibility, which we have actually, we've mentioned already. I'm not sure if there's more that you want to know from that, or Brian, you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the whole process of evaluating the product from the start for funding for the first order is difficult for some of the other suppliers that had the same issue, and then we calculated how it would work for them. So we actually sit with the supplier and work out with them their cost open book, so they can understand where it starts from. And for an example, one of the suppliers we worked with, the cost of from 70 Rand for one product went to 50 Rand, and we were able to order so much more, and it was working. So it's worthwhile. They still make a decent profit, but the point is that you're able to sell a lot more products. So it's continuous purchases that you're trying to achieve, and that gets the ball rolling with your cash flow. To put a lot of stock into the business does cost money, so we all have to carry that burden, and there's ways of getting across that with the, and we help you with that process. And like you mentioned, there is preferential terms for the Seeds of Change participants, but normally we'll share with you how the normal retailers work as well, and how we normally work with suppliers, so that when you go out in the market, you have some indication of where you stand and how difficult it can be. So growing the business that way is the right way to do it, but working out the base price for the product, including the funding of the price of the product, is part of it. So that was how it works out. Hope it makes sense.
Yeah. I see it's actually a lot of similar questions here. I think Colin and maybe Henry and even Natasha here, there's some questions around financing. So maybe we can just take a step back here. I think one of the things, and it has been an evolution with Seeds of Change over the last 4 years, and Ratang and Pusha are the first 2 years here, so I'm not even sure if we had gone into that much detail in their years, but there was really an understanding of, have you priced your product correctly? You know, have you taken in all the hidden costs, you know, the logistics, all of the kind of the holistic view of what that's going to look like. So we've spent a lot of extra time, energy, and effort in helping them in the boot camp stage of the program to really get a better understanding. There's a lot more, or most of those kind of enterprises go, should I've got a lot more homework to do here before I really understand, before I approach that buyer to say that this is the cost and that is the cost, because actually I haven't factored that in. So I'm going to price myself, I'm going to bankrupt myself before I even start. Or I've got, like, Brian mentioned, maybe I'm pricing way too high. In actual fact, there's a different way to do this. So we do really assist in that. When it comes to financing, we've had conversations around this program itself is not, so we do not finance the entrepreneurs or those enterprises. We don't, even if the winners, I mean, there's not really a financing option. It's really about bringing in businesses that are already at that point where they're ready to go to market. So we're not pumping additional financing into it. However, we have looked at options of going, is it worth us bringing in, the likes of angel investors into the program, especially on pitch day, so that if they see a potential or an opportunity with those entrepreneurs, that maybe their connection gets made then. So I guess, I don't know, Brian, if you've got any other thoughts on that, but that's currently where we are with the program. No, you're good. Do we have any other questions, or I'm sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time here, and I'm actually not very good at this. Janine?
You're nailing it, Terry. I don't think that you've missed any. Similar questions.
Yeah, so I suppose maybe if there's just like a summary of learnings that we've had from our side is, the value that businesses like this can bring into your business, and it's actually some of the intangible stuff as well, is incredible. It really, really is incredible. I cannot tell you how loved this program is in our business and how proud it makes everybody when we see entrepreneurs that are successful and when we see their products on our shelves. It's an immense amount or sense of pride that we all get. For those of you that are looking at how do I bring these programs, or how do I, bring these social enterprises into the business, is look at it in a lot more flexible format. You've got to be more flexible, and you really, it's the plug and play, as when you're looking at other suppliers, there is more energy and effort and resources needed to help grow these businesses. But I think the benefit of it at the end of the day far outweighs the effort that would need to go into it. So maybe we can just leave. If I see we have 5 minutes left.
If I may, Terry,
Yes?
there was one question it would be interesting to hear from Pusha and Ratang, and also perhaps yourself, Terry, from Colin, about is Food Lovers Market's approach unique in the South African market, or are there other companies that are, as he puts it, exemplars of fair and faithful business practices? And if not, are there steps that Food Lovers is taking to sort of engage peers in a similar way? I said it's relevant for Portia and Ratang in case you've perhaps come across similar programs of support for social enterprises.
Rashan, do you want to
go? To be honest, I haven't come across a program like Seeds of Change, especially, with their focus on social enterprises. The work that they put into mentoring and giving us insights really on how retail operates, how to make sure that you're making a sound decision, because we end up getting excited as SMMEs that, okay, I'm going to list in a retailer, but you end up losing money. So, they've really gone the extra mile and putting a lot of effort, and I'd love to see more retailers actually employing a similar model in empowering SMMEs, because it really is worth it in terms of making more of a socio-economic impact in the country.
I think similar to Retang, so far I haven't found anything that's similar to Seeds of Change. And I might add that I think a big realization for me is that the more organizations can adopt this model, what ends up happening is that people don't realize it's a product on the shelf, but there's so many lives that are impacted by this one product that's sitting on the shelf. It's not just about Local Village Africa, the business itself. There are so many beneficiaries behind this. So can you imagine if we had more businesses that are adopting a similar model, what impact South Africa could reach? We could reach great heights by simply adopting a similar model as this. I think it's worked. It's worked wonders.
Yeah. And look, so, I mean, I don't have offhand, others that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure, but I think from a smallholder farmer perspective, I think SPAR has got some sort of program. So that's probably the closest that I could think. But I think one of the important things that I know this is, whether you call it a conflict of interest, but we decided really early on, specifically around Seeds of Change, that we were never going to make it that these businesses had to be exclusive to Food Lovers Market. I think that's completely against the idea of helping businesses grow in South Africa. So we've always been very clear with all of those that hopefully the learnings that come out of Seeds of Change enables them to approach other retailers as well, so that they themselves can be successful across South Africa. Obviously, Brian likes to think that some suppliers would be exclusive to Food Lovers, but I think specifically in the context and the bigger goal that we have here, that would be completely against our values if we were saying that they'd need to be exclusive. So yeah, that answered your question, Janine. And Colin.
Yes, beautifully. I really love the collaborative approach that taken in that way, as Retang framed it earlier. With that, I see that our time is up. I would just like to thank Retang, Portia, and Brian and Terry. Thank you very much for your contributions to this panel. They were incredibly valuable. And thank you also to the commenters that were providing tips and context. It's really appreciated. And I'm very sorry that we didn't get to some of the last few, but feel free to reach out to our team. And please do check out the report as it's released. Just a small shout out to my team, Emma, Rowan, Lena, Joe, and Lucy. So appreciated. I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday afternoon. And thank you as well to all of the social enterprises that have participated in our market analysis. Just big thank you and have a great afternoon. Goodbye,
Thanks
everybody.
for having us, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.